Yo, what's going on, guys? In this video, you guys are going to learn how to finally implement your own mobility routine. We call it correctives, and how to actually make it work, because a lot of you guys have been doing different movement stretches, static stretching, and for the most part, a lot of those things really aren't converting to what you guys are hoping to, whether it comes to hip mobility, overhead mobility stuff. So I'm here today to show you guys how we're able to do that with our athletes and correct their movement imbalances. So start off, I kind of already covered up a lot of things, but problems within the industry. So just like I spoke to you guys, for the most part, if you guys are trying to achieve a certain goal of creating extra range of motion within the hips, the shoulders, you guys kind of fall off to just doing the same repetitive movements over a long period of time, oftentimes doing static stretching. And I mean, by any means, like, that's all cool, but there's gonna come a time and date where those things are going to stop working. And regardless of that, the reason why you guys can't even translate that over to usable range day in and day out is because you guys lengthen a muscle that may probably not be needed to be lengthened, and you guys don't support it with the proper activation of weaker muscles or that muscle itself in order to support those extra movements and keep them obviously for as long as you guys are competing. And with that said, a lot of these static stretching stuff, a lot of these regular mobility stuff, trying to force ranges where you probably don't need any, or forcing ranges the wrong way, it's increasing the risk of injury in today's game. So obviously, we are here to change that and show you guys how to create a more adaptable stretching or mobility routine. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Anthony Rodriguez. I run an online baseball performance training company, and where I teach a lot of athletes just like you guys how to increase their velocity, move pain-free, and get the recognition they deserve through our methods, and this is actually one of them. So what are correctives? Correctives is a technique used to correct movement imbalances and compensations. So a lot of these movement techniques may or corrections may probably not come just from the shoulder or from tight hips. It may come in ways of guys who have an aggressive lateral drop on one side. A lot of these things could be shown everywhere in the body, ankles, whatever it is, you guys name it. So the format that we use to correct these movement imbalances, it's inhibiting, which we will get into that, mobilizing, activating, and integrating. So why is this important? The reason why this is very important is, especially with the model that we're following along here, is because we're targeting everything step by step. We're not missing a step when it comes to getting new ranges and making sure that we're actually keeping it in a safe way, right? Unlike what a lot of you athletes have been doing, which is just stretching, mobilizing, same old thing. And I mean, within the next, 2 minutes, you guys are back to the same range that you guys had. So this is going to ensure that you guys are keeping it and making sure that you guys are targeting the right type of mobility. So what is inhibiting? Inhibiting is used to relax tension within the muscle and improve blood circulation. So you will think of that as foam rolling, right? So before we go into any type of mobilization, we will start with foam rolling certain parts of our body, whichever parts are the ones that are overactive. We try to get those to relax, and then after we get those to relax, then we continue on with the next steps of mobilizing, which will be next. But obviously, we carry a lot of tension, we carry a lot of adhesion, so we use, whether it's a foam roll, lacrosse ball, whatever it is. I think the sharper the better. I mean, if you're more on the experience side of things, if you're not, then you might have to go with something a little bit more passive, kind of like just like a regular foam roller, which we'll show you guys what those look like. So mobilizing, after we've released tension from our overactive muscles, we use mobilizing to open up new ranges. Now this can be used in the sense of static stretching, just dynamic stretching, PNF stretching, You can do pails and rails. If you guys know what that is, we'll probably cover that on a different video. So again, like I said, it is performed on overactive muscles used to open up those ranges. So like I've been telling you guys, if it's in the hips, you guys would target certain areas within those hips to open up those mobility restrictions. So after we've mobilized, we want to activate. Now, we won't just activate any muscle within the body. We would activate the muscles that are weak, that are causing us to get those tightness within those areas that we're trying to mobilize. So think, for example, which would be the example that we will use at the end. Think of the hamstrings, right? A lot of you guys tend to start stretching the hamstring because of any restriction that you guys have, any tightness, and the reality is that the tightness is being felt in the hamstring, but is not coming from the hamstring, because our body is very synergistic, right? And I actually have another video for that. I really won't go much into depth with that, but when it comes to the hamstring, the glutes are the main drivers of the hamstrings, right? So we call the glutes something as the agonist muscle, which is the main driver. The quads would be the antagonists who work in the opposite side in order to help the movement be achieved. And then the hamstring are synergistic muscles who contribute with the movement of the glutes and obviously the quads, right? So if we were to think about this as a squat, right? When we're back squatting, our glutes is activated. As we're going down, our quads are relaxing to get us into that flex position. And then as we're going into those eccentric and concentric motions, our hamstrings are the one that are contributing to the whole entire movement with those things. So the reason why that's important, like I told you guys, if we were to activate a muscle in there to get the hamstrings to loosen up, it will probably more than likely not be the hamstrings itself, even though you can, but we will go in there and target an activation within the glutes, which we will cover that also on later on within this video. So obviously, like I said, we're restoring balance to opposing muscle groups, not necessarily the muscle groups that are tight, instead the muscle groups that are weak. And then there's other times too where obviously we can go in and target the one muscle that we've been trying to stretch out, right? So overall, after that, the most important part of it all is really the integration, right? So this part is missed by a lot of people, and even so much into our strength and conditioning, the way that we're going about it into the gym. But the way that we use these movements is to restore proper movement patterns along the whole entire body, right? So if you guys are noticing the way that we're kind of taking this in, we started off with releasing tension, then we're mobilizing the areas that are overactive. Now we're activating the areas that were weak, and now we're integrating the whole entire movement to teach it. We're trying to reteach it to move as a whole. All right. So think of that, for example, like if I'm struggling to get my arm overhead, right? So muscles that would be restricting in that would be muscles like the pec, the lat area. So what we would do is release tension there, right? And to mobilize, right, we're going to do any type of mobilization movement to open up those ranges. To activate a muscle will be the middle and the lower traps, which are responsible for retraction, and serratus anterior as well, just kind of like up here. And those muscles, for the most part, would be weak because obviously they're not helping us get up, and we need them to help us get up there, right? And then towards the end, integration, this is where we teach the whole entire body how to move as a whole. So with this, we can include something like a squat to overhead dumbbell press, right? So if we squat and then we press overhead with the dumbbell, that's obviously not just teaching that area to go overhead, but we're also incorporating our whole entire body to move overhead, right? So hopefully that's making sense to a lot of you guys. So they're multi-joint exercises, obviously just bringing energy through different joints within the body to help those be achieved, right? So we have a study case here. So let's take a look about Fernando. So remember how I spoke to you guys about the hamstring, right? Here we have Fernando. Play this again one more time. So the lower one here was before we started training together, right? And then this is how much range he got. This was honestly, it was covered up within a month. The amount of range that he was able to cover, like or restore. Obviously, as you can guys see, I mean, I'm just taking an educated guess. Like he was able to restore maybe around like 15, 20 degrees of range of motion, where obviously his hamstring has a lot more length. Did we actually go in there and try to stretch out the hamstring? No, we did not. Which I'm going to show you guys how we were able to do that. Now, before we're able to show you guys how we're able to do that, this wasn't guesswork. This wasn't like, oh, well, like, let's just assume that this is what's happening and this is what's causing this, right? That's not how we work. We obviously need a more systematic approach of to understand what's actually going on within Fernando's body. So these are just some of the exercises that we used to kind of see on our end what was going on. So with this exercise, we use a single leg lift. So as you guys see him lift, you guys can actually see him shift back onto the heel, and obviously like his trunk wants to also shift over towards the side, right? So there's a lot more things here going on than just beside a hamstring overactivity. Now we're trying to see his lats, his TFLs, tensor fascial lata muscles around here that are kind of contributing to that overactivity. And just besides that, guys, like this is also what we're seeing, but we also know Fernando's natural movement preferences. He is somebody who desires to be in more flexion. So those things may be sometimes natural for guys to really get into that heel. But obviously, as we saw, he was experiencing some overactivity there, and he's also had history of lower back pain, which we obviously took note of, right? Then we use a movement. We'll actually go towards the push-up towards the end. So this is a quad assessment. Obviously, he can't. Normally, what we try to look for this is for the heel to really kind of like touch the butt. It is not, or be somewhere near it. Obviously, it's not happening that way for him. So this tells us that he does have some overactivity within the quad area. So those are some things that we're going to have to look at. Now, if we take a look at his push-up, this is more of a semi full body movement, even though yes, we're feeling it here at the chest, but the core has to be activated and the glutes as well. But if you guys see what's going on with him here, if we were to draw a straight line for him, like this would be curved down, obviously the tightness within the hamstring, weak glutes, and then he has some to a certain degree a lower back, like anterior pelvic of the tilt. So he's not really much in a straight line. Is he ever going to be in a straight line? Probably not. But these are things that we look at to understand, well, how's his body producing force, right? So obviously he's more upper half kind of dominant here. We can see like his pelvis kind of like dump on the lower back and stuff. So again, this is a lot more information that we're gathering for this. So the plan, right? This is kind of the plan that we had on for Fernando. So we're going to start off with this, just kind of like briefly go over them. This side is the inhibiting part. This is the mobilization, activation, and then this will be the integrated. So like I told you guys, obviously he's had some, we saw that he had some overactivity within the quad area, right? So we have to now think a little bit more holistic for him, right? When it comes to the quads being overactive and the hip flexors, is probably not only that part that's contributing to that, but now we have to look a little bit of what's happening above. And the psoas is definitely a muscle that contributes to that flexion and that tightness on that anterior part of the body, right? So obviously we're going to start with releasing tension there. Then we're gonna progress onto the quad area, kind of releasing tension. And as you guys are seeing, I'm going fairly slow here, and that's something that a lot of athletes miss. They think that when they're rolling out their body, they have to go super quick, and instead, your tissues can't really adapt to that quick. So what you guys have to do is you guys have to spend at least anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds within the muscle, moving inch after inch. So per 1 inch of muscle that you're targeting, you have to move after that range, like between 3 to 5 seconds. That's kind of a ground rule, unless you want to spend there like 1 to 2 minutes. You can also do that too, but making sure that the object that you're using is relaxing into those muscles, right? And then we finish with a QL. Oops, sorry guys. We finish with a QL release that's kind of part on the back. Again, he's been experiencing back pain. It's a little bit above the glute. We try to release that muscle, as it is a very important muscle for him to get released. So now we're gonna go into our lengthen part of it. So when we try to lengthen, we try to stay away from static stretching, just because we want our muscles to still be very rebounding. We will go to static stretching in very rare cases, depending on what you're dealing with, or what we're dealing with here. And if we do some type of static stretching, we probably do PNF stretching, which would be an explanation for a different video, right? So here we have duck walks, right? These videos is designed to have him in a lower center of gravity, obviously more closer to his movement preferences, and as we're going through the motion, we're getting a quad stretch as we're trying to transfer between legs, right? So it's a more dynamic way to get his quads to stretch. Here, obviously, you guys don't really have to target the hamstring, but we just want, hey, let's just go ahead and try to get some little dynamic movements within the hamstring. So we would have him do a rollover V-sit for that. Now, that's literally what we would have him do. Now, after those things, right, the muscles that are overactive are kind of like loosened. Well, now we need to strengthen the muscles that are weak, right? So now we go ahead and start off with a glute bridge. So the glute bridge is there to strengthen the glutes, right, which are the agonists of the whole entire movement. The hamstrings are overactive because obviously they're taking a hit from the glutes being weak in this position. Not really sure why this keeps going forward, but then we would go into a plank with shoulder taps. You guys really don't got to do a plank with a shoulder tap, but it makes it a little bit more dynamic, because now what we're trying to do is incorporate core stability, right? Because the core, just how I told you guys, the core is the main driver of your whole entire body, the engine. And with weak, sometimes with overactive core, it can be a little bit of a weak core as well. So we have to target those things, making sure that that his body is working synergistically together. And then at the end, we will finish with an integration. So my choice of exercise was a Turkish get-up. Obviously, with the Turkish get-up is more of a dynamic movement. You're going from one position to another. And obviously, as you guys are seeing in this movement, my glutes are activated. Obviously, the hamstrings are taking an effect here. My whole entire posterior side is activated. And obviously, I'm using a kettlebell. You can use a dumbbell for this to continue pushing up, which is providing some resistance, right? So this is more of a dynamic movement to, okay, now let's teach the hamstrings, the glutes. Let's teach the upper half how to work again. We teach it how to work again all together, right? But obviously, those things don't really end there. There's a lot of different ways and forms that we can formulate this, and which with a lot of you guys are also missing. These things, like obviously as I was explaining, weren't just oh, hey, let's just do this, let's just do that since it's overactive. No, we were trying to keep these ranges with the same format that we follow. However, it wasn't just based on that assessment. We based that also on his motor preference assessment. So how does his body prefer to move? What muscle chains within his body prefer to be activated? Just to give you guys some example onto that. When it comes to us, obviously now we're trying to train different fascial lines. Where also there's different progressions and regressions. This is not probably going to be the only exercises that he would do for the rest of his life. Like, no, they will have a time where they stop working, and then, well, now there's another issue, so now we need to fix that and obviously continue moving on further. So hopefully that made sense to a lot of you guys. I know it's a lot of information and it can be a little bit tricky to implement, but that is really somewhat of the system of what we use when it comes to us fixing our athletes our athletes movement imbalances, making sure that they're moving better, making sure that they can get into certain ranges that they normally don't have access to, which obviously helps them increase their velocity in a shorter amount of time. So hopefully this all makes sense, guys. Again, like I told you guys, it's a bit hard to implement on your own, but hopefully this gave you guys a better framework. If you guys, however, want us to do it, you guys can book down a call with us. We can speak about your situation, see where you're kind of at and what you're missing, and we can see if you're a good fit for our program, and then we can go ahead and implement a lot of these stuff for you, which will just save your headache and you can just perform. So let me know how this was down in the comments below. Let me know if you guys are going to use this or what type of videos you guys would like to see next. As always, I'll see you guys then.